As the nation awaits the final results for this year's election, the black vote could help determine who wins the White House. According to the Pew Research Center, 30 million African Americans were eligible to vote this year, making up more than 12% of the U.S. electorate. More than a third also live in 9 of the country's most competitive states. For more, I'm joined now by Derrick Johnson, the president and CEO of the NAACP. Derrick, thank you for joining us. We are still waiting for votes to be counted in several key states. And you heard us perhaps just now discussing Georgia and the idea that that previously solidly red state could potentially flip. How much are black voters changing the outcomes, especially in these southern states?
Well, if you look at the states that are under considerations and where in those states the concerns are, Detroit, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and now Fulton County, Cobb County in the metro Atlanta area, that's about the black vote. And what you also are noticing that those votes are the last to get counted. This election will be decided because of the black vote. It will be decided in those areas. And then when you add in Clark County in Nevada, it shows the power of the African American and Latino vote in that area. But the black vote will determine the next president. And that's so important.
Your organization obviously prioritized increasing voter participation within the black community. Are you satisfied now with those efforts?
Well, we are satisfied at the level we participated, but we're not satisfied because in this democracy, we celebrate if any community can muster 55 or 60% of the vote. That's not a true representative democracy. We need to be advocating on ways to open up access to voting for all citizens. If Australia can vote at a rate at 96% or Canada at 92%, Germany at 93%, why should we settle for this government only allowing 55 to 60% of the vote and we say that's a high turnout? We should be pushing for more to have a true representative democracy.
Absolutely. Well, the death of George Floyd at the hands of police earlier this year sparked nationwide protests against police brutality and racial injustice. How much did the Black Lives Matter movement drive black voters to participate in the electoral process?
Well, understand, Black Lives Matter is a statement of fact. It is something that we hold dear. It is something where individuals rallied in protest around in the 1960s, the 50s for that matter, 70s. And so the movement is the ongoing movement. We simply used to call it the civil rights movement or the human rights movement. But the statement of fact is what people are rallying around, that our quality of lives matter, that we should be afforded equal protection under the law. That's what it means to say Black Lives Matter. It's a statement of fact. And in this society, the Constitution should apply to us as it does any other citizen.
But maybe my question wasn't clear, sir. What I'm asking is, how much do you think that that African-American voters turned out in this election as a result of witnessing George Floyd's death, Breonna Taylor's death? And we could go on and name names, but certainly there has been a moment of national reckoning that continues now, that in our democracy certainly had an effect. How much was that an effect? And how much would you say the coronavirus pandemic, which has disproportionately affected people of color, how much did that drive black voters to participate? In many cases, people who had not previously been engaged in the democratic process.
I think all those things were factors. I don't think it's any one thing. I think all of it. I think the last 3.5 years with the level of racial hatred, xenophobia, and white supremacist acceptance have played a part of it. We have seen the loss of civility in our public discourse. We have seen the acceptance of white supremacist dogma coming out of the White House. So African Americans turned out in large numbers in 2008 prior to George Floyd. African Americans have been frustrated and upset and concerned and quite frankly recognizing that we needed to vote in this election because our very lives depend on it, whether it's aggressive policing in the street, i.e. George Floyd, individuals causing no harm, sleeping in their own bed, Breonna Taylor, or the fact that our public policy was not strong enough under this administration to address a global health pandemic that's national in scope, and we still lack a federal response. It's all of those things that are contributing to the level of anxiety, frustration, and fear in African American community that push people out to the polls.
No matter who ultimately wins the presidency, Derrick, what kind of change are you hoping to see within our government?
Well, one, we have to have a more representative democracy. We need to take a serious look on the administration of elections. It is so partisan now, and it should not be partisan. It should be a part of what we do to protect and grow this democracy. Two, we need to make sure that individuals are cared for in terms of their health, their safety, their ability to really benefit from the tax dollars they put into the coffers. But more importantly, the health of any society is based on three basic metrics. How well do we care for the elderly? Are we preparing our young people for a bright and prosperous future? And do we protect the right of the disadvantaged? If we create a policy landscape to address those three questions, that will be light years compared to where we are now in this in this racially polarized, tribalistic manner in which we communicate. We have an opportunity to be a better America, an America that looks towards 2030, not an America that's looking backwards to 1950.
All right, Derrick Johnson, thank you.
Thank you.